This episode of RSR is brought to you by Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, and Grace Design. These are tools that I use every day in my studio, from the Spectra 1964, STX 600, 100, and 100D, and Native Instruments Complete 26, to the central hub for my studio, the Grace Design M701 audio interface. Follow the sponsor links in the show notes. Grab my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com, and remember to like this video and subscribe on YouTube because it's a great way to help support this show. Now, get ready to rock.
And in fact, maybe I don't think it'll work. Maybe I've tried it other times in other situations that were similar and it didn't work. But kind of like, I guess sketch comedy. You're supposed to never say no in sketch comedy. You're supposed to keep the momentum. It's always yes and. And I kind of feel like that works in the studio, and I think that that's sort of what he was doing. So I also never really say no. I try and figure out how to work it in. I don't know. There's something about that gains you some goodwill from the artist so that when you have your ideas, you can try it. So you kind of have to field their ideas and try them when they're appropriate. Not shut them down when they're really not appropriate. Like, you can't just be like, no, that won't work. You can't be flippant like that. We're working as a team, and we're constantly trying to feed goodwill back and forth so that I'm free to have my ideas and you're free to have your ideas. And we all agree that we're just going to do the best thing for this thing that we're creating.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is, these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw. Welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Greg Giorgio, a producer, engineer, and mixer known for his work with artists including Delta Ray, The National, Death Cab for Cutie, and Trey Anastasio, to name just a few. For more than 25 years, Greg has built a reputation for his meticulous approach to recording, mixing, and mastering, with nearly 2 decades working with producer Peter Cadis at Tarquin Studios. Today, he brings that depth of experience to 9 Point Studios, where he helps artists and producers craft their sound by balancing creativity with technical excellence. Please welcome Greg Giorgio to Recording Studio Rockstars. Greg, my friend, are you ready to rock, dude?
Oh, I'm always ready to rock. Thank you for having me on.
Dude, it's great to have you here, man. What a gorgeous studio you're joining us from, too. So that's 9 Points, right, where you're sitting in the control room?
That's right. This is 9 Point Studios in Greenwich, Connecticut. I just started working here about 2 years ago. And it was pretty cool. The place was already built, but the builder and owner of the studio, Robert Van, he was trying to figure out the best way to actually utilize all of this gear. If you look around, there's an incredible amount of gear. We've got an SSL board also. It's trying to figure out the best way to kind of use the SSL as the heart of the studio and then figure out what sort of workflows that we can put together to make things streamlined.
Yeah, that's such a big part of what we do now is in these hybrid digital analog world.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a lot to consider, actually. To be honest with you, when I first started with the board, I was trying to use its preamps, and I was trying. This is a stereo board, so it's actually the way I use it now is actually as my summing mixer, and I've got
As opposed to like an old school quad SSL. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I've never worked on one of those. So what I'll say is this particular mixing console, every fader that you see is a stereo fader. So if you're so if you're coming up with like, we could call them stems, but let's just call them subgroups. So you've got what I have in front of me right here. I've got drums. I've got my drum smash, which is like an analog drum smash. Percussion, bass, guitar 1, 2, vocal 1, vocal 2, keys, synth, orchestral elements, and then other. Beyond that, I have effects, Odo pedals, space echo, spring reverb, some other pedal boards in the back, an RMX16, an H9000, or actually 2 H9000s, and 2 Bricasties. Now, the cool thing about the way we, it's incredible, right?
I was going to say, meanwhile, everybody who's listening is like, I need a napkin. I'm drooling while I'm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was drooling. I didn't know. So when I walked in the door, we didn't have this set up at all. So we're wondering what to do. So I was used to having, one fader per one side. So I was like, all right, so how can we figure this out? Like, I'll use the preamps, I guess, and we'll do drums across it. But I guess maybe the drums will be all the odds and then the evens. So I was trying to figure this out because you can kind of split the faders. It didn't work out very well, and I actually thought about it. I thought about it for like a week. And then one day I had a shower thought. I always have thoughts in the shower. I was like, well, wait a minute. I feel like we're fighting this board. Why don't we just set it up to be our summing mixer? And then when we go to do overdubs, all we have to do is have a few channels open. So that's what we do. So the beginning, we have 3 stereo channels open. It's click track, overdub 1, overdub 2. And if you were doing more than 2 overdubs, remember they are stereo tracks that can be split. So you can have 4 different overdubs there. And then everything else is, it's all submixed in Pro Tools. So if you're recording, 19 drum tracks, well, that all just goes into an aux, and that aux feeds aux drums. Same thing if you got like a bass DI and a microphone, that just goes into aux bass. It all comes out on the board. And the cool thing is the way we've got it set up is, let's say that is what you did. You've got, your drums coming out of, what is this, fader 4. You've got your drum smash a little bit, and you start populating the mix just a little bit. You've got a guitarist in there, you've got a bassist in there, and a vocalist. That's what you have. So I've got it set up so that I can send at any time. The sends are going to these analog faders, or analog returns, I guess you could say. So analog effects. Yeah. So even if you're tracking and you want a little space echo, see what the vibe is going to be, get the drummer playing to like, that delay, well, put a little space echo in there. Give them the real thing. Don't give them a plug-in. Same thing, like our room is on the small side. And if they want a big roomy drum sound, then I just crank up the Bricasti a little bit. And it's always there, just sitting, like waiting for us to use it. And that was one of the big wins. So like that was when I first came in the door, it was like, Greg, how do we use this thing? And that was what we came up with.
What's interesting to hear you describe it is just a couple of things. One is the reminder that we can integrate all kinds of things. We don't have to have our entire world live inside the computer. Mm-hmm. We can have a mixer, we can have outboard stuff, but also it's just like, there are some things that are going to be easier to manage in the computer, and you want them to like pull up just the way you left them before.
Yep.
But then there's a whole bunch of stuff that you just kind of want to manage in the moment really quickly. So like quickly adjusting headphone mixes balance a little bit. You can probably just push a fader up or down to improve the headphones for people, or even for your own listening in there. If you print a mix through there, it probably sounds pretty great, And then
Absolutely.
Also, like the effects stuff, it's just like the more me stuff, and for headphones, you can just boost a little bit more on the aux send, I imagine, or the Q send.
Well,
and like those effects, being able to set those up and quickly adjust them for people. It's like those don't always have to come back up exactly the same way you left them before. You just want to be able to grab a knob quickly and go,
Yeah, it's just for vibe. It's to get people inspired. I know saying, oh, it's just for vibe is like kind of corny, but it's real. If people hear, if they hear it with the effects, it will sound more like the album to them, and they just will give a better performance. They can play to the effects. It's just different. And Actually, you're talking about like headphone mixes, and that actually goes into also what we ended up coming up with for like headphone mixes. The way that this console works is I can send things pre-fader to our Aviom systems. And the Aviom is also all stereo ins, right? So it goes one for one. The drums that come out on the board come out on the drums on the Aviom. Same thing with percussion, bass, guitars. They're all the same exact. Every fader I have is every fader they have. And the way that I run things is I run all these faders at 0, and the mix is done in Pro Tools. So if you go to your Aviom and you hit recall mix 1, that is our zeroing out, you will get the mix that I am listening to in Pro Tools. That's what you'll get. And then if you want more of yourself or whatever, well, at that point, you'll be doing probably an overdub. So those come out on the overdub faders, because remember, I've got overdub faders and click faders. So what you're hearing at that point is exactly what I'm listening to. And you can turn it up and down if you wanted to, any of the elements, because it's, they're all discreetly on the Aviom. But if you wanted to also just hear your vocal or whatever you're overdubbing totally separately, you've got control of that. So you have the mix you just heard in the control room, and then the ability to listen to any of your overdubs. It's great. I never have to do anything with the headphone mixes. It's just,
so as an engineer, does that mean you also have the ability to solo isolate something in the control room speakers and not mess up the headphones, not mess up the mix? That's
Absolutely.
great. That's one of the things that I miss when I'm working in Pro Tools, because if I want to go solo something, I just killed it usually for the headphones because I'm sending out the stereo mix to everybody,
Oh, you're sending out the stereo mix to everybody.
Yeah, which I know there's ways around that.
There are ways around that, yeah.
I just don't, there's a tendency, I end up practicing this, and then I know a lot of other people do in their studios too, just because when you're working quickly and in home studios in particular, the stereo mix ends up being the mix that everybody's listening to.
Absolutely.
And there are those times where it'd be like, oh God, it would just be so nice to make sure that it's not that guitar sounds all right, or the vocals sound good by themselves in this moment, So having that solo ability is really handy.
Yeah. Actually, the one, a real easy fix for that, don't go through a master bus, go through 2 auxes. Send one aux to the headphones and the other aux is what you listen to. Solo safe, and it's a done deal.
Right. So let's break that down a little more. So you mean by using the aux sends in your, whatever it is, 5 to 10 send slots in Pro Tools and building your headphone mix that way? Or are you saying take each track and just send them directly to bus tracks and then have a bus return for your stereo?
No, here it's super simple. You've got all your tracks. Let's say you've got 10 tracks. Instead of, so those would generally go out, you're like 1 and 2, what you're listening to. So send them, we'll call it, things like this, I usually put at the end. I call them bus 99, 100. So send all the tracks, instead of going to what says headphones, send it out to bus 99, 100. At the end, you create 2 auxes for that to feed into. One of the auxes, you send out your, the control room outs, and the other one, you send out the headphone outs. I'm pointing to live room. And then if you will never be listening to what's going out in the headphones, and they will never be listening to what's going in the control room. And if you solo safe, then you can solo whatever you want, and they'll always kind of get it.
I see. So you solo. All right, let me say this one more time, because this is actually pretty brilliant, and hopefully this is going to hit people, some of the people listening, with an aha moment. But we take all of our 10 tracks in Pro Tools. Let's just pick one track. No, that won't work because we need an example with where we're soloing. All right, so we got 10 tracks, and one of them is the vocal. And we're not using any of the auxiliary sends on those tracks. We're just simply taking the output, the mix output of each track, which is normally selected as 1, 2. And instead, we're going to send that to bus 99. So it'd be like 99, 100 and 101, 102 as outputs.
Yeah.
And we're going to sort of like dual send the output of the track.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't done this in a while. Yeah, you actually do use the sends. I'm sorry. You send the sends, post fader and keep them at 0. And that post fader send is the thing going to 99-100, and then 99-100 goes out and feeds the headphones, and then the other mix is the one you listen to.
Right. So we are still listening to the mix 1 and 2.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I do so many
when
different versions
when
of
you
this.
solo safe the aux return 99-100 that's going out to, we'll instead of 99-100 we'll just call it headphone send.
Yeah.
So when you solo safe the aux output for headphone send or the aux return, I guess, then when you solo the vocal track in the master 1 and 2 output, we're just going to hear the vocals. But because the aux to the headphones tracks as if it was going to a reverb, but we're just sending it to the Q mix.
Exactly.
Yeah. So because that one is solo safed, that means that it will, well, actually, won't you hear the vocal plus the headphone output, but you won't hear the rest of the tracks in that case? That's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
Let's see. I hope I didn't lead you down the wrong path. I'm going to look really quick.
Sorry, this is great. This is like a live brain twister right here on Recording Studio Rockstars.
Well, yeah, because the funny thing is, I used to do this, but it's been so long, I don't remember like the actual details.
I believe you that there's a way to do it. And the other way to do it, of course, is we just set up separate Q mix and. Yeah, I'm not sure about the solo save thing, but I'm pretty confident that there is a way to do it. I also don't do that myself.
No,
usually.
now I'm remembering. It used to be so much more laborious than I'm making it sound. So I would do it pre-fader, and I would actually make the mix that they hear out in the headphones. It would be that, and of course nothing that I did on the main faders would affect it because it was all pre-fader and pre-leveled.
Right.
That's the
just
deal.
like an old school console mix where we're building a Q mix, which is fine and that works. But of course, that as an engineer, that puts us in the moment where we have a little bit of work to do to get the headphones right for everybody on each song, and each time we're switching, making new tracks and all that, which is legit. I mean, that's the way we engineered headphone mixes. And it's one of the reasons why I default to just the stereo mix, so I don't have to manage all that stuff sometimes. But it's a good reminder for us that there are these different ways to do it. And it's, the other thing, Greg, it's another good reminder that every once in a while, we got to just be like, hey, you know what is it that I'm always doing in the studio? All right, I'm going to go down this afternoon and fuck that all up and try a whole different way of thinking about it, because we discover like these whole new workflows, like you have in the shower moment with the SSL, which sounds a little funny to say it like that. Like you having the shower epiphany that you could route the SSL in a certain way and make it really useful with the stereo faders.
Sure. I like to think about that stuff a lot. And I don't know about the headphone thing. Sorry if I threw anybody in the wrong direction. If you want to edit that, you can. Or if you want to,
no, I'm leaving it in there. I think hopefully that got us all thinking hard about the routing on everything, and maybe we'll get some comments in the video comments. Would be great. Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures. Explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848.
So where do we go from here?
The Avioms are really great, and the whole More Me mixer systems that are out there. You got the Avioms. I know Behringer makes them. Wolf Audio, if you've got the budget for it, they make a gorgeous one that is all analog and would be really incredible to use. But I'm currently, I just installed the Grace Design M701 in my studio, and that is pretty cool because that gives me a whole routing matrix within the interface that will let me send, set up basically a custom mix for the headphones, for the stereo of the headphones. And then from there, I can set up limited mixers that are available where the artist can come in and scan the QR code on my screen, and then they just take their iPhone out and they have this little iPhone mixer for their own headphones.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's brand new for me, and I haven't put it through like a year's worth of paces yet. So you can check in with me then, but I'm really confident that this is going to be an awesome addition to the studio. I was even able to set up TalkBack going right into it because I know that's always been one of those question marks is like, when you get into the more me stuff, it's like, well, wait a minute. You know, the TalkBack used to just feed the stereo mix coming out of the board. How does the TalkBack get into all these custom mixes? How do you guys solve that?
Let's see. What is the question? How do we send TalkBack out to the headphones?
Yeah. How does the TalkBack hit your Avioms?
Yeah, our TalkBack is well, it just goes off of the board. Let's see, we've got, and to be honest with you, I don't know exactly how it's wired, and it goes into the patch bay. They're patched in, and there must be, in the Aviom, there must be a TalkBack in because it's just wired, to the SSL's TalkBack, section.
Yeah.
So what we have, I mean, just to I guess elaborate more on sort of what we do here, we've got. Let's see, we call them Foldback A, which goes to the headphones out there. We've got Foldback B, which actually goes to speakers out there. So if you don't have headphones on, it's there. And when you hit the if you hit the listen microphone, then you can listen. There's just a microphone out there that can hear people talking. So yeah, between those things, we can usually communicate pretty well. Certainly, everybody can always hear us in the cans. Like that's very easy to do.
Yeah.
Hearing them talking to me sometimes is a struggle. Even so, like, all right, I can hit this listen microphone and I can hear everything in that room, but that is going through like a Shure like mini mixer that has like ruthless compression on it. So you turn it on and you hear all this AC, whoa, and if somebody hits a snare drum when that thing is on, it'll take your head off. So
so it's not limited.
It is, but
it's just gained way up.
Everything it's gained way up because, like, if you're going to hear somebody who's away from that microphone talking in a normal way, well, it's got to be gained way up, and it's set pretty loud in the control room, and whenever I turn it down, then I can't hear them talking. It's this dance. So I'll say one thing that is still a little bit of a challenge is, hey, do we put a TalkBack microphone out there for like whoever's doing the overdub, especially when you've got drums in the room? That's really the thing is when drums are in the room. Just to talk into, just like an SM7 or something, like it's not going to take my head off. I could put it on a fader and just listen and turn it down.
All right. You ready? You ready for Lidge's solution for you? You can try it out. All right. So what you do is you create an auxiliary track in Pro Tools in your session.
Okay.
And on that track, you're going to go get the free plugin called Mutomatic, Muteomatic. And I forgot who makes that. Apologies. Do you know that one?
I do know that one. In fact,
is that I'll find it for you faster. So in the Rock Social listening, they're like, come on, guys, I know it. Oh, Sound Radix, of course, Sound Radix.
All right.
So you go get Mutomatic, and you're going to put that at the last plugin slot on that IO. And then before that, you can choose which one you want to use. The limiter that has worked great for me is the Massey L2007.
Love it.
Which has been around for ages and works in AAX and Pro Tools. And so I get a Massey on there and I put the L2007 on there and you just dime it all the way input. Right. And then you take it and you duplicate it and you do it a second time and dime that as well. So it's like insano limiting.
Wow. All right.
Now the only trick is the output level. You have two options. One is you leave the fader at 0 and you just turn the output knob of the second limiter down to a reasonable level, or you leave the limiter outputs all the way up and you just always keep that fader really, really low.
I see.
But what happens is when I stop tape and the band is just chilling, it pops open, the Mutomatic opens up, and then you have this ultra compressed microphone out there on the floor. And what I do is I usually pick one of the overhead mics on the drum kit because it's usually a high quality condenser. And then it's a good clean gained up sound. And that way somebody can hit the snare and it'll be annoying because it'll make everything else disappear, but it won't be loud. And you won't ever blow up your speakers.
Very cool.
Unless you accidentally turn that track all the way up to 0.
Right, of course, they'll take your head off. Well, that's brilliant. I could see. So the double limiters just really keep everything locked. Nothing gets past. You've got your own. I mean, the best fail-safe is, like you said, turning the output of the second limiter down. Then you can't blow your head off. Like, there's no way to do it. And that's what we're missing here. It's just I don't know what that mixer is plugged into, but it's like plugged in directly into an amp or something. It is loud and it is hidden somewhere in this studio. And like to go and get it to turn it to a volume that would work is very difficult. So I love your solution. I think that's great.
Thanks, man. And it's worked really well for me in the studio. And it's surprising how little of it you need to hear what everybody's saying. But the only caveat, which isn't really a problem, is that it creates latency usually to have those plugins running. So you get a little bit of a funny slapback echo sound. So if it's ever in there when the tape's not rolling and you're just trying to work out a part, you have to remember to, probably turn it off again.
Sure.
And mute it, or else it might sound a little funny. And it can make the sustain of that last cymbal hit just go on for ages because it's so compressed, but it really works great. And ever since I started doing that, I've been able to easily hear what everybody's saying. As a band, you can, when it's on, you can hear what everybody's saying in the room too. Awesome. So it's easier to talk and have the conversations.
Has that smashed like double limited sound? Like, has that ever inspired any sounds for you? Like, I mean, drums might sound insane. Yeah, like.
Of course. And then I go like, why am I not always compressing the overheads like that? And then I take the output of the track and I print it on another track so that it's printing with each pass, just so I've got it, Although actually, I guess it doesn't really print if Mutamatic is on there, but I've done it where I've printed it. I've set it up to print a version of it too. But then in the end, it's sort of like other tricks. Then I get to the mix and I'm like, and I don't end up using it. I just throw it away again. I'm like, all right, maybe it was fine before I ever messed with it.
Yeah.
But it's a great, great trick because communication's so crucial when we're doing these tracking sessions, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It just, poor communication bums everyone out. And I don't know, people have to be inspired, not bummed out.
Yeah.
So yeah, communication is very important. Actually, I want to tap back on, you said, hey, why don't I limit the overheads like this all the time? And I gotta say, I've for most of my career, I've just put a little bit of compression or nothing at all on the overheads, and I thought that was just great. And I would smash the crap out of the room mics, front of kit mics. I'd put up character mics, and like that's where I'd grime a thing up. And you know what? Lately, I don't know if it's by accident or just what I felt like doing. I don't know. But I've been putting some heavy duty compressors on the overheads. It depends on the material, but like, man, I don't know, 1176 with all the buttons in on overheads can work. Yeah. I mean, if that's what you're looking for, it's a certain sound. And then even more ruthless than that is the devil lock. Every once in a while, if the drummer is not playing too hard and not too many cymbals, if you put a devil lock on the overheads, as long as you don't mind when they do hit that cymbal, it's going to go like it's going to explode a bit. It can sound very, very, very cool. I love doing stuff.
I think
like
that's I think that's a great tip. And then the reminder is we can always have the uncompressed overheads recorded, and then we're doing some of this trickery to have it on a second parallel compression track where we have some control over that. And I mean, we didn't really get into your background yet, which we can talk about here in a moment, but like, jumping forward to current stuff, a number of the records you're making, let's see, which one was I even thinking of as I was just thinking that? You're right. Kids That Fly, that one. Like those, you're making, one thing I really appreciate about your discography, which we have in the show notes, Rockstars, you can click through and go listen to these great records that Greg's making. But you're making bold and stylistic records. Like you're doing records where the drums do a cool thing, or like there's a really clever use of room sound and compression. And that's exciting to hear,
Thank you so much. I appreciate you pointing that out. That is what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I'm trying to reach in and make things sound kind of colorful and interesting. And I find that, like, especially with rock music, it's kind of funny, So, I grew up during the grunge era, and so I used to listen to all these, grunge bands, and of course, I grew up with it, so I've got an appreciation for it. And when I listen to some of that old stuff, it's incredible how, like, they didn't really stylize it much at all. They just kind of recorded it. A chorus comes, you don't get extra instruments, you really don't get very much production, and, like, that's kind of like that's the whole idea with that stuff, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I I was totally there. I started off in much more of like a punk rock mindset. I was just kinda like putting up microphones, making it sound scrappy and go, and as time has gone on, I've gotten much more into being creative with the sounds, and it doesn't sound really like a record until I've done some of those things, that really make it pop, especially in a chorus or, I love there to be like a spooky sounding bridge if we haven't had anything like that before. Um,
Yeah.
and like honestly, and there are people that do it even more than me and better than me or whatever. But I just love the idea of trying to put that in, especially into rock songs. If you're listening to a pop song, it's all that. It's all interesting sounds, and then you've got a great vocal. But rock songs, they can be a little bit bland if you don't get in there and try and like make them a little bit of a kaleidoscope. I love doing that. I'll do whatever I can, just record an extra guitar and we'll put a tremolo that's got some sort of weird phasing thing. We'll make it go like this in the two speakers,
Yeah.
but it'll be under the regular one, under the regular
Yeah.
version of it. Um, or like you said, smashing the crap out of the drums for a section, or having two drum kits, the normal one happening, and the second chorus comes as a little bit of a drag. Hey, what if we add in a second drum kit, just one microphone, totally smashed, and we just pan it right over here? Yeah, those are things I like
Yeah.
to do with these records. And thank you for noticing. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, man. And I'm hearing that in a bunch of the different records that you've done too, which hopefully we'll get to talk about too. But another smashing tool that is really cool, and I'm very excited about it right now. I don't know if you've had a chance to check it out. It's the Spectra 1964 C610 plugin that Spectra made with Audio Punks.
Okay, I have not heard the plugin. It's a rack
It's so
unit,
great.
right?
You can go crazy with it on some sounds. So it's a really exciting way to take all those drum sounds. And are you a Chad Blake fan? Is that
yeah.
sort of like your
Oh, yeah.
world too?
Absolutely. He's one of the best, right? I love his interviews also. I love his work. I love his interviews. His work with Tom Waits is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really
And
cool
Tom
stuff.
Waits is a good example of like kind of doing extreme treatments of sounds too.
Yeah.
Although some of that's just in the instrumentation,
But yeah, they go for it. I have a joke. I don't know if you'll like this joke or not, but I feel like Tom Waits, like they put all of this effort into making the songs sound like they're off the cuff.
Uh-huh.
Like they do. They sound like they're just like, oh, these guys, they were just vibing. They did this. I feel like so much work goes into those songs. Like,
Yeah, totally.
right? Everything, I think, but it does not sound precious like that. Yeah. I think if you're in the mood for something weird, Tom Waits is the way to go.
Native Instruments now brings you Complete 26 with powerful instruments, synthesizers, and creative tools to help you make music faster and stay inspired. The legendary Absynth 6 is back with evolving textures and experimental sounds, while Contact 8 gives you the tools for chords, phrases, and arrangement right inside your workflow. With Massive X Guitar Rig 7 Pro, session guitarist instruments, and premium tools from Isotope and Brainworks, Complete 26 gives you everything you need to create in any genre. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Well, I'm trying to think of the various people that work with Tom. I know that Jakir King did, and so he's probably got a lot to say about the early records and that they were doing together. Tom Waits's music, or lyrically, his songs are like, it's like imagery and lyrics and like, kind of like flashes of things that make you go, what was that? Just great descriptive lyrics, and it's one of the things I appreciate in recording. And to your point, what you're talking about is the ways that we can make our sounds much more graphic and descriptive. We don't always just have to capture things. Like, it's wonderful to know how to do a pure capture, especially you go into the world of stage and orchestral recording. Like, you better know how to do a pure capture of something, because the instruments are creating all that imagery in tone. But when we hit the studio, a lot of that responsibility can fall on our lap as the engineers too. And so the more we know how to do what you're talking about, the better.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to serve the song. You're trying to bring out some emotion. You're trying to make it just sound interesting. Yeah, it's weird. I think that I had a whole journey with that, using effects versus not using effects, using distortion versus not using distortion. And it's still evolving. So like, I remember when I first started recording, like a really long time ago, the first thing I ever recorded was on like a, Porta Studio, 1997, 1990. Yeah, 4-track. It was rough, and
you still got it? You still got it?
No, but I have actually used one, like maybe 4 years ago. I went to somebody else's studio and they had one, and I was like, we got to use this thing. And check this out. We did use it. We got the sounds. It was grimy. It was great for what we were doing. And something had, like, the motor stopped turning the tape. The tape just stopped turning. So what we ended
That's
up,
what pencils are for, man.
Yeah,
you put a pencil eraser in there and spin the cassettes.
Do it manually, really old school. So it was a little bit of a disappointment. We ended up actually still recording through input monitoring. We were still blowing it up, you know what I mean? So it didn't go to tape, but it did go through the machine and got some of its grime. But I remember this though. So the first thing that I ever tried recording was my old punk band in my friend's kitchen, and I had read how to use it, and I got like proper levels, and I put up the 3 microphones because we needed one for guitar or something like that, and we recorded it, and it sounded incredibly lame. I mean,
right?
Who knows what microphones I had? Who knows where I was putting them? It just sounded lame, and I left, and he kept messing around with it. And the interesting thing is he's still a musician, and he doesn't really have that much of an interest in recording at all. But I left, and then he calls me up. He's like, "Oh my God, I made these drums sound awesome." I was like, well, come on, you don't even know anything about that machine. I read all about it. I read the basics of how to do this. And he's like, I don't know, man, you should come down and check this out. And he only lived 10 minutes from me. So I turn around, go back to his house, and he plays it. And it sounds awesome. One microphone recorded, totally blown up, just dimed, totally blown up, because he was the drummer, and he's like, doesn't it sound awesome? And like, here's the thing, it did sound awesome. I was like, well, what'd you do? And he's like, he shows me, it's all red lights, and it's totally overloading. And I was really conflicted. I was like, this is absolutely wrong, but it sounds absolutely better than the lame thing that I just did. And like, the moment really stuck with me. So, time goes on. I didn't fancy myself a sound engineer in 1997 or a producer in 1997 or 99 or, it didn't start until more, 2000. I really got into this stuff. So anyway, wow, I'm rambling. Once I did start recording, right? We had been in some other studios. We went into an ADAT studio, unremarkable. We went into Kurt Ballou's studio, which
nice, man.
Oh, you know Kurt
Salem.
Ballou?
Yeah, he's been on the show. He's great.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And so he was an early influence of mine, right? So out of all the CDs that I had a few things. Who do we want to record our hardcore band? And looked through them all, picked a few people. I was like, no, I think it's this guy. I think it's Kurt Ballou. So we went to a studio, which at the time was in Needham, Mass, I think. Wow, and it was not what his current studio is at all. It was in a warehouse space. He had, I believe, an 8-track reel-to-reel 1-inch. He had a Mackie board. He had, it's funny how I remember these things. He had like 2 nice preamps. I don't know what they were, but I remember him saying that. And he had, I think, 2 distressors, which were new to him. And he's like, you know anything about these distressors? No, I did not, because I didn't know anything. Oh, yeah, Soundcraft Ghost. That's what he had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he recorded our band doing just an EP over a weekend kind of a situation. And man, even in 1999, he knew what was going on. He made it grungy as hell, and it was great. He hit the tape machine really hard. His tape machine responded really well to it. I don't know what he did after that, but it was good and aggressive. And
Were you using the Evertune bridges? Did he bust out guitars for you guys as well to keep you in tune? And all
there were very few instruments there, and we brought our own instruments. I remember our guitarist was using like an LTD guitar that he bought for $200, and like it was punk rock back then. But anyway, so I was really inspired by what he had done. He's just like, he just set up this place. He took his musical ear, his skills, his taste, put it into this place and started making really good records. So I was kind of inspired by that. And I was like, you know what? I would kind of like to do that too. I've done a little bit of recording on our demos and this, like, let me try that. So I did do that. And I got this warehouse space and I set up some gear and I recorded some stuff or whatever. And I initially had been recording with way too many effects and compression and stuff like that. And then I had read all over like Pro Sound Web and other boards. No, compression kills the vibe. No, it kills, it ruins the sound. So then I didn't use any compression after that. And that was even worse. I was like, oh my God, using too much was better, So then I kind of felt like I hit a good spot after doing it for a few years. And I actually went when Kurt was building his studio in Salem, because I kept emailing him and asking him questions. I ended up buying his Soundcraft Ghost that we made that EP on. So I had to go up to get the Soundcraft Ghost. It was like, hey, if I come up and get the Ghost, maybe can I like help you build the studio a little bit? Maybe pick your brain a little bit? And he was like, yeah. So I went up and I did very little to help him, but I did pick his brain.
I like that quote, if I come up and get the Ghost.
Yeah, right. And so I showed him one of the
especially
mixes.
in Salem of all places.
Oh, of course, yeah, plenty of ghosts to get, right? And so I showed him the mix of my band that I was working on, and he was like, "Sounds pretty good." He's like, "It's too clean," and I was like, "Too clean?" He's like, "Oh, it's way too clean." I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about. It sounds good." I didn't. To be honest, I didn't know what he was talking about. I did know that I liked what he did for us, and I did know that I kind of liked that better, but I didn't know it was inherently because of, like, I don't know if you want to say distortion or harmonic, enrichment or whatever, or all of the above. But it took me a while, I think, to kind of recover from using way too much compression and distortion to none, to then figuring out the amount that's good, and then beyond that, how to use it stylishly.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that like that kind of like that evolution, like I had this curiosity and I was like, yeah, maybe that is the way. And as time went on, I ended up meeting Peter Cadis and started working with him. And we started talking about distortion. He's like, I don't know, the things that I like the best that I've been doing have like kind of like a lot of distortion on them. One of the things in particular, that he's known for is the first Interpol album. If you listen to it, there's a lot of distortion on it.
Yeah.
And so he was like already engaged in making that part of his style. And I started thinking too, I was like, maybe I want to make that part of my style too, because thinking about what Kurt had been doing, I was like, he makes that part of his style. I liked that. Now I'm working here. I like the mixes that Peter's making. I think I want to explore this, right? So I did. I started putting more and more of it and trying to figure out, okay, you put some in, you got to take some high end away from the cymbals. Like, how do you have to treat it before and afterwards if you want to get more and more of this, compression and distortion? And
yeah.
Interesting. It continues to today, because, like, for instance, the Kids That Fly stuff you're talking about, now I'm starting to put like a little bit of a clipper on my master bus too, and that's kind of new. And like sometimes I hear it and I go, it's starting to sound a little bit like I've got a distortion pedal on this mix. And I'll tell you, the more I do it, the more people love it. And I'm just like, all right, cool, sounds that way, great, awesome, love it. I love it too.
I think it's great. It's just like, it's a good reminder that this stuff we're doing, I know we call ourselves engineers, we think of this as there's a lot of science involved, but at the end of the chain, for somebody who's listening and just experiencing, it's just art, it's just music. I mean, we're just painters, and we're trying to like choose paint colors and figure out what, like, whether we're impressionists or whether we're like pointillists or whether we're, you know, the hyper realists, you know, with our little wire grid trying to get our perspective exactly perfect because we didn't have cameras yet, you know.
Yeah.
It's like there's a variety of ways to do things.
Yeah, it can be a slick oil painting or it could be splattering paint around the room. I mean, it definitely can be both. And I think that, you know, I think that what good producers do, what good engineers do is they try and like distill their own taste down to a way that will kind of like work with what the band is doing. All right, the band is first. The song and the band is first, you know, like I take my orders from them, but I also am kind of thinking about, all right, I know the sort of, you know, things that I like to work with. Maybe for this particular project, it will be mostly, you know, clean and clear like a slick oil painting. But you know what? I want some pops of real dirt at the end of this song. If it gets really emotional and intense, well, there's going to be some distortion coming out. And that's going to be just a new thing that happens at the end. That's part of like development, especially if like, let's say the song didn't develop enough by the end. You're like, well, the song wasn't really, it didn't really lift at the end. It didn't give me the payoff. Well, if you start bringing in your crunched up room mics there, if you start bringing in more delay on the vocals, you start bringing in more crunch on the vocals, it kind of changes that last chorus. And now it's more intense, even though nothing else has really changed. And you are serving the song, even though you're kind of imparting your own little like special effect taste kind of thing on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, what's funny is we're making the painting analogy, but I mean, it's sort of like, because when we're engineering or even producing and we're working with a band who's an artist, it's as if Jackson Pollock was the artist and then somebody else was actually handling the paint brushes and, you know, splattering it on this canvas for him or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like, it is different what we do. It's a group effort and interpretive and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of fun. I don't know, you're making me think of wanting to do a track now where it's like, all the verses are like super clean, pristine, and careful. And then all of a sudden the chorus just sounds like somebody's just drops like a kaboom distortion pedal on the entire mix and on every element. And it's just like screaming at you, you know? That was really, I mean, when you talk about the grunge area too, it was like a lot of that stuff, you know, Nirvana was like quiet, loud approach, you know, was the kind of like stomping on pedals for the choruses.
It is like that.
That was sort of a new approach, you know?
Yeah, it in a way it's what you're saying, only without doing with I mean, they did a little bit with production, but they did it for real in front of the microphones. And actually what you're describing is sort of some of my favorite stuff. I love that. You could do like t-shirts over the drums, playing really quietly, closed hi-hat kind of a deal. Who knows, maybe there are no guitars in the first verse. Maybe that's saved for the second verse, you know? But the choruses come in and maybe everything's exploding, you know? Everything is stressed and then it recedes down. Honestly, it's sort of my favorite form. Really quiet, tamped down verses, really explosive choruses with a spooky bridge. Like that's sort of my favorite like setup for a song. Yeah, that's what I like anyway. And
that's awesome.
And that's what I spend all of my time doing. I don't spend all of my time. Yeah, I definitely capture good sounds. And that's great. And I spend time on that. I find it's not very challenging, to be totally honest with you. I know where to put the microphone. I know what preamps. We've already got our signal chains set up here. Like they sound good. The art really is, how are you going to mess this thing up? You know, like how are you going to give this thing some life? You know, it doesn't lift off the page just as it is. And that's kind of what I was referring to with the grunge era stuff. Everything was recorded really well. They just didn't really put the production in a lot of the time. There are exceptions, but a lot of times they didn't really put the production in like we're saying, to do things incredibly quiet, like t-shirts over the drums, to wide open, distorted, roomy drums in the chorus. Like they didn't really do that, you know? And that's something that's come up in the past like 10 years or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of fun.
Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry. From studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional-grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, rock stars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. My guest today is Greg Giorgio, joining us from 9 Point Studio in not Greenwich Village, New York, but Greenwich, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. Greg,
you ready to jam, dude?
Oh, I'm ready to jam. What are we talking about?
Well, let's see. We got so many fun things to talk about. I don't know if there's more you want to say about your background and getting started. You covered a lot already. You talked about starting out with the 4-track, working with Peter Cadis. Takeaway moments, like things that come to mind for you about working with Peter, like aha moments for you.
Oh, aha moments. Geez, what would I say? I'm not even sure. I'm sure we'll discover an aha moment, but honestly, the biggest thing that I learned from Peter was how to interact with the bands, how to do your own thing creatively without stepping on their toes, how to field an idea of theirs. So like, as a producer, you're going to come in, you're going to have some ideas. Oh, I think we should do it this way, that way, or whatever we're talking about, whether it's like dry drums, whether it's, I don't know, anything, right? And those ideas can be right or wrong. And same thing, the band can have ideas that are right or wrong. And the thing that he would always say to kind of just about anything, whether I was saying, hey, we should try this, the band was saying, hey, we should try this, it would always be like, yeah, we'll see how that goes. It's always, we'll see how that goes. Never really know, but like, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that fits in. Well, we got to do a couple of other things. So there's always like, well, we're building this thing. Let's see. And sure enough, like he wasn't lying. Sure enough, we might get to that idea. It might have been the right thing, but there's some things that he had in mind. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think that I do that with bands now because they'll have an idea that is not at all what I had in mind. And in fact, maybe I don't think it'll work. Maybe I've tried it other times in other situations that were similar and it didn't work. But kind of like, I don't know, kind of like, I guess, sketch comedy. You're supposed to never say no in sketch comedy. You're supposed to keep the momentum. It's always yes and. And I kind of feel like that works in the studio, and I think that that's sort of what he was doing. So I also never really say no. I try and figure out how to work it in. I don't know. There's something about that gains you some goodwill from the artist so that when you have your ideas, you can try it. So you kind of have to field their ideas and try them when they're appropriate. Not shut them down when they're really not appropriate. Like you can't just be like, no, that won't work. You can't be flippant like that. We're working as a team and we're constantly trying to like feed goodwill back and forth so that like I'm free to have my ideas and you're free to have your ideas. And we all agree that we're just going to do the best thing for this thing that we're creating. And I don't know if that's like a direct answer to what I learned from Peter, but I will say interfacing with the bands was huge. And that was even what I was looking for in a certain way. So when I had my own studio, in fact, I had 2 studios over the course of maybe 4 years. And I was recording all these punk bands and indie rock bands and emo bands, and everything always came out pretty good. But nobody likes pretty good. People like great. And so I was like, I don't think any of these are great. They're all right. This all sounds like local band stuff, like pretty good local band stuff. And so one of the things I wanted to do while working with somebody else, and it ended up being Peter, was learn more so what goes into these great albums, like what sort of things are happening behind the scenes. And when I started working there, I did. We had better bands coming in. I saw really what producing was. I was, I was more of an engineer. I had some ideas as to what I thought would be good, but I don't think that I was coming up with real creative ideas that really impacted the song itself. Oh, let's cut things
Right.
out. Oh, that, I don't really like that note you're going to in the, but like that, the real production-y stuff that I was not doing that. I didn't really properly uh, even know to make a chorus lift, really. The kind of music I was making beforehand didn't like, that wasn't part of the conversation. Um, so so yeah, I would say that just by being there, and working with Peter, I definitely kinda like got up to speed with making records for real. Um, I think that we're both really committed to making great records. So I think that, to a certain extent, like he would learn a thing and share it with me. I would learn a thing and share it with him. Um, Maybe the heavy duty use of distortion was the thing that I got from him in a real way, like putting that into action. Um, I would say a thing that I absolutely do to this day that I got from Peter, would be taking away mid range. That 3K and 3.5K, he will take that away from just about anything in any amount. And I used to be pushing that. And you'd be surprised at what taking even like 2 dB out of 3.5K will do on a lot of things. Uh, Reverbs, all my reverbs have some of that taken out. Snares, yeah, you could boost that if you're going for something like really heavy, but like usually I'm not. Usually I'm making these indie rock songs that like are supposed to have a squishier, saturated kind of a snare. And like, that's not really.
Right, like Bedrock Wild Rivers.
Yes, that's a great example. That's a squishy, like, I don't know if there's a towel over the snare or not on that one. I mean, like, probably. But exactly, like
Really
that.
deep snare too. Sounds like you guys tuned the snare really low.
Oh, that's our signature sound. And I would say that I definitely take that with me. Having a deep, thick snare. Over at Tarquin, we had a few different snares, and like, you know what? They were just things that came into our lives along the way. And at some point, we ended up with this giant marching snare. And it was something we were like borrowing from somebody. I mean, it was big, like a very, very big snare.
They're like 14 inches deep or something.
It was.
They're huge,
absolutely.
right?
Huge, totally huge. But it had the hardware, the marching stuff taken off of it. So it was basically like a snare. And it sat around in the studio for like a year and a half. And specifically, Brian Devendorf from the National pulled it out of the closet and he's like, what's this? And we're like, oh, it's a marching snare. He's like, does it sound good? And we're like, it's really deep. We like deep snares, but we find that one to be kind of crazy. And he's like, let's give this a shot. So so the National, I think on the Boxer
I
album,
like your sales pitch there. We find this one to be kind of crazy.
It's a little crazy. Are you interested in
wink, wink.
crazy? Yeah, like, can I interest you in something that's not on the menu?
Will you rise to the challenge?
Yeah, it was like that, and he did rise to the challenge. So he put it on the kit. He had to find the only snare stand in the studio that could actually accommodate it low enough was actually halfway broken, and he's a tall guy, so he does not need it that low. But anyway, so special stand. We get the giant marching snare on there, and that became the snare for like really a lot of the record. And the record ended up being kind of influential. So when other bands would come in, be like, how'd you get that snare sound on that National album? We're like, let me show you. And they're like, again, the off menu item, it was this marching snare. And they always want to use the marching snare.
No, your answer to the indie rock band where you're like, well, I could show you, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it might cost you your sanity. I don't know.
You have to sign this contract waiver first.
You got to sign a waiver. That's right. Mm-hmm. Yep, and a non-disclosure. Do not tell anybody this is the kind of snare you used. Yeah.
Well, so that's awesome to hear you describe it too. So, maybe that answers the question, but I'll ask it in case you know more about how to get that deep snare sound. Translation, in other words, it's not taking a snare that's otherwise, right in the middle zone and then tuning it way, 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 way down low.
Mm-hmm.
It's finding a deep snare like that that naturally is tuned down low like that? Or can we also take, have you ever taken like a Black Beauty snare and can you tune that really low to get that deep sound?
Good question. You know what? I find that we definitely tune small snares low and we get a deep sound. I'll say what really helps it, depending on the song, you could put tea towels on it. You could put tea towels halfway on it. Um, big fat bass drum, big fat snare drum has like a thing that you can purchase to put on it. I will say though, a Black Beauty is that's a metal snare. I find that wood snares are usually better for this.
Okay.
So at Tarquin, when we were going for this deep sound, we generally would be going for a wooden snare. It would generally be deep. What are we talking? An 8-inch deep snare drum. There was this one we had, the Gretsch Swamp Dog. And it had all the attributes, right? It's called the Swamp Dog, right? So that's a selling point right there. When I would tell bands, "Oh, you want deep snare? Do you want to use the Swamp Dog?" Get right in their ear about it.
And he's like, "Wait, is the snare called the Swamp?" And he just called me dog.
Yeah, you want to use the Swamp Dog? So anyway, the Swamp Dog it has all the attributes that you would want, which is to say it's a mahogany drum. It has rounded bearing edges, so they're not like the more modern sharp bearing edges. It depends on the head that you put on it. I mean, you could put one of those fiber skin heads on it. That's going to start getting really deep. They're thick and heavy sounding. We actually had a tendency to stick with single ply like ambassadors. They're a little harder to tune in a way because they've got a lot of overtones. But the truth of the matter is we dampen them down so much. So anytime you get a big, deep mahogany drum like the Swamp Dog and then put dampening on the top, it starts to get you that really thick sound. And I'm going to say the top head is legit deep. Like it's floppy. It's real. And the snare strands too, like, as you're tuning it, you hit it and you tune it and there's a certain spot where it goes from being like a staccato kind of a snare strand to it starts to splat. There's and that's kind of where we live. It sounded sort of bad, to be honest with you. In the room, it would sound sort of bad. And the bass drum, same thing. It would sound sort of bad. But then we would start treating these things, gaining them up, a little bit of saturation, some harmonic, saturation, whatever, and it would come to life. And then the last key to this thick splat sound, because it's gained up like that, you can't hit the snare hard. We're talking
right. That's what I was going to ask you about too.
Yeah,
it seems to be really crucial. It's funny because the more you go into indie rock, the more you start realizing, stop trying to hit the drums like a loud rock drummer.
Yep, absolutely. It is not Dave Grohl. If you play like that, it's not going to sound right at all. It is a measured, slow in the middle, no rim shots kind of a thing, and then beyond that, we're talking compression and saturation and EQ some of that mid range out of there. And there's
maybe gate it.
Yeah, absolutely gate it.
Don't you guys have a rack of drummer gates in there? Did I spot that in there?
Do we have a rack of drummer
old
gates?
School gates?
No, we have the drummer EQ. That's the tube EQ. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, okay.
Like mid there, and then up higher. It's an API rack. There are a lot of fun toys in there. Oh, actually,
I've still got the old Aphex gates in my studio. They don't get used so much, but when I do use them, I'm always like, these are so great.
That's great. I mean, I love gating things. Actually, I have a thing to say about snare gating that I figured out recently. But I just noticed there's one other piece of the puzzle. If you really can't get that low end, the voice of God. We have the analog units right there. Plug-in works too. I mean, sometimes you crank the entire low. Like, it's great. It can even be too much. But check this out. So, gating, right? Gating definitely is a go-to thing for me. I love gating. I hate the hi-hat. I want to get it out of my snare. I love gated reverb. Been playing with gates a lot. A few times recently when I've gotten things to mix from other people, it was not really possible to gate the snare. It was just there were too many like little ghost notes and other little things
Yeah.
like and like there was no bottom snare mic, so I couldn't like, oh, I'll just gate it. The ghost notes will disappear, but that's fine. I'll get it from the bottom and the room mics. It wasn't like that. Like the ghost notes were not coming through really much of anywhere except for the snare top mic. And this was like a real problem. There was like a lot of hi-hat and there was like a lot of like regular cymbal crashes coming through. And it was like kind of ruining everything. Like I don't even think I'm being dramatic. It was like, it made it really harsh. And I tried a bunch of different things. I tried some of these new school gates that they have that have a little bit of AI in them. That it just like really kind of nothing worked. Nothing was satisfying me. And here's what I ended up doing.
Native Instruments now brings you Complete 26, loaded with creative tools for songwriting, production, mixing, and sound design. The big news is the return of the legendary Absynth 6, with evolving textures, cinematic soundscapes, and experimental sounds designed to spark new ideas fast. Contact 8 continues to be the center of the complete ecosystem, with built-in tools for chords, phrases, grooves, and arrangement to help keep you in the creative flow. With Massive X Guitar Rig 7 Pro, session guitarist instruments, Play Series sounds, and premium tools from Isotope and Brainworks, including Ozone 12 Elements, Complete 26 gives you everything that you need to produce in any genre. Plus, Native Instruments continues expanding NKS integration with complete control keyboards and machine hardware. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off.
With the whole track playing, like I approached it after I had everything else sounding kind of like it was going to sound. And I was like, back to that snare. We got to make this thing work. So in context, what I ended up doing is, I had the amount of compression that I needed on it. And that was kind of it. I don't think I had distortion because like that made it even worse. But in context, I turned it up as loud as I needed it to be for this to really sound good. And I did that. And when those cymbals came in, it was awful. And I was like, all right, now EQ the snare in context, but only worry about making the cymbals sound good. Don't care about what frequencies you're taking away. This is me talking to myself. I'm like, don't care if you love adding 8K and 6K to snares. If you have to take it away this time, that's what you're going to do. So that's what I did. I got in there with the whole track playing with like the nastiest sounding part. And I just started like fishing around in that, like from everywhere from like 2K all the way up, just fishing around. What makes this sound finally okay? Let's say I found that ducking out a whole bunch of 5K was the thing that made it sound good. The weird thing is I tried at the same point doing just a full on like low pass. No. I needed the high end above this 5K, the 8 and the 10. I still needed that. It was what was in this 5K that just had to come down by like a lot, by like 7 dB or something. And then when I got it down there, I was like, this is so much better. This is, oh my God, did I save this track? Then I started opening the cue, just like, whoa, okay. And there was a spot. There's one spot where there was like enough high end from like, let's say 8 or 9 or 10K. I don't even know what it was. There was enough of that coming through and enough of this really nasty like 5K that was gone that it sounded pretty good. It was certainly better than everything. Maybe it wasn't my best snare sound ever, but honestly, once I got a little bit of reverb on there and did my other things, just a little bit of sound replacer underneath it, it actually sounded really good. And gating it was sounding terrible because every time the gate opened, you'd hear, it was crazy. So this was, I would say that was an aha moment for me, like recently, like that was like a few months ago. And I was like, if I ever struggle with a snare, this is exactly what I'm going to try.
Well, it's a reminder to us that like so much of the power that we have is just in fader balance, which is another reason why it's great to have a console or fader controllers. I have the SSL UF8s in my studio, and just being able to like sculpt the balance of the different drums, the close mics and the room mics like that, quickly in a mix really informs where the sound is. And that's what you did. You trusted your ear. Like, I'm going to make this snare loud enough in the mix that it's got that thing that I kind of like. And then when the problem shows up, I'm only going to address the problem, as opposed to trying to like, in isolation, come up with some always perfect snare sound that you can never accomplish. And what it reminds me of is an early interview I did on this show with David Thoner. And when he was talking about recording AC/DC for those about to rock, I asked him how he got the toms to sound so great. And he was like, that's easy. You record the toms. He didn't gate the toms or do any of that stuff, because I've dealt with that too, where you're trying to like gate the toms in and out of recordings, and it gets really difficult as well. And he was like, what you do is you just mix the toms as high as you want them to be during the tom fill. And then every time there's the problem where the cymbal crashes and all of a sudden it sounds awful because it's coming through the tom mics, you just pull the faders back down, for those moments. And when the toms weren't playing, instead of gating them all the way gone, which also can kill the drum sound sometimes because, those tom mics are resonating a little bit with the drum kit. They've got a little bit of air in the sound, especially I would say with the simpler drum miking. If you have like 13 mics up, it might not matter as much, but when you've got like minimal mics on the kit, and then he just bring that down to a place and sit it in the mix, the tom mics, where it wasn't, the cymbals weren't a problem, but it was still letting some of the air be in the middle of the drum mix. And I thought that was and when you talked about that, it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. Context is everything. And I have to remind myself of that. Like early on, I of course liked to EQ and solo like everybody does. And then I was like, no, I that works sometimes and other times it falls apart and you kind of have to redo it. So I kind of got pretty disciplined about doing everything in context. Maybe I forget sometimes, but it's actually really nice now that I'm like really accustomed to it. It's actually really nice to do it in context. So many fewer surprises towards the end of the mix. But also, I still have to remind myself, even though I've been doing that for a long, long time, that it's the big picture, especially when you're talking drums. It's the big picture that matters, not really any of these solo microphones. I mean, the solo microphones aren't the whole thing anyway. And it's not the room mics. It's I don't know. It's all of them together is the representation. So, I guess just like I was saying, so I was able to take out all of that mid-range or upper mid-range, whatever you want to call it, from that snare and have it still work. Well, that's because I did have the benefit of the overheads, and I did have the benefit of whatever room mics and whatever sound replacers I put in there. And if you listen to it all together, you can hear what you're losing versus what you're not losing. And because it was all in context with all that other stuff, it turned out I really wasn't losing all that much. I was losing the mid-range I didn't like. I wasn't really losing much of anything else. And in other situations where you don't have to go that extreme, you still could do some of that if you had a really great bottom of the snare mic to get those ghost notes, or if you had... let's say you were doing a production that was more built and you had a drum loop in there. Like you can't go and work on these things in solo because you've got other things filling in the gap. I mean, drum loop is a great thing, a great example. There might be a drum loop that totally takes up the mid-range. You don't even notice that there's no mid-range. Maybe you could low pass the snare all the way and have no high end or mid-range, and it's fine. You have a drum loop going. In context is where it's at. And the more I do it, the more I like it, to the point where like I'm nearly never in solo anymore. Like it has very little relevance.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's when it comes to the solo thing, all we have to do, it's like listening to all the possible takes and, pulling our hair out, trying to choose the best vocal pass or whatever as a producer. All we ever have to remember is, you do want to choose your best, but in the end, once you made the decision, none of the other options matter anymore because nobody's ever going to hear them.
That's true.
When you solo all the individual instruments, all you have to do to get yourself out of that is to think, oh, wait, nobody who ever listens to this record is ever going to hear these things in solo. So the only thing that matters is all of it all together, what they're gonna finally hear. I have a question I wanted to ask you though. because one of the cool things that we glossed over about your setup when you mentioned all the breakout faders on your SSL, and I think the second one you said was parallel drum compression.
Oh yeah.
Now, that's really important, and maybe you can talk about that, because when you have a console, you have the ability to do parallel drum compression. And when you're recording without a console straight in digital, you don't have the ability. I'm going to just flat out say that. And somebody's going to be like, what are you talking about? I parallel compress in my mixes all the time. Yes, but not while you're tracking. When you're tracking, we don't have that ability without screwing up our phase and not really hearing the real sound of the drums. We don't have that ability to hear the drums treated while we're creating. And that's what I want to ask you. With your console setup, I'm guessing if you use analog, you do.
Mm-hmm.
If we use separate, squash mics for the drums and run them through analog compressors, then we do have the ability to hear that treatment while tracking. But the point I'm trying to bring up is it must feel cool to be able to do severe, compression and treatments to the drums and actually hear it in real time while you're producing and recording, so that you can respond to it as part of the performance instead of waiting for a mix.
Yeah. All of the above. So the exact reason why we do this is to inspire the band to get better performances. It's also so it's a weird thing. It's also so they know why they came to our studio, because like if they've recorded at home, they know what it's like recording drums, and it really probably doesn't, maybe it sounds good in the end, but it probably does not sound good while they're doing it. The monitoring is probably all off and whatever. So the cool thing about having it set up this way is, you can kind of hear what it's going to sound like in the end, especially like I said. So we've got the drum smash, which I'll go through in a second. But again, having all these other, like I said, we've got the Bricasti, we've got the H9000, the RMX, like we've got all these other things that we can add to any of, so we can get a vibe without committing to any of it. And it's like not to be perfect. It's to inspire the band, especially if they're making a vibey track. I mean, if it's going to end with all these effects and be like a late night smoky sounding thing, far in the back dreamscape, well, you have to kind of hear it that way a little bit from the get go, or you will not know what you're recording.
Totally.
So, with that in mind, the drum smash thing, we always have it on a fader here. It's multed, so it's what it is it's pre-fader from the drum, like fader that's next to it, I guess you could say, the physical channel, and that feeds into the drum smash. And what that is a lot of fun stuff. The drum smash is, let me look at the gear.
So it's like a few options that you can bust out, and it is analog too, or it's
it's
actual
analog.
outboard gear.
Yeah, it's outboard.
Yeah.
It's so it's the Chandler germanium compressor. And then that goes into the special edition Culture Vulture. And those two,
sweet.
Those two things together can get pretty grimy pretty fast. By the way, our regular drum bus also goes through a Tube Tech, was the LCA, what number is it? The
LCA 1A or something 2A?
Yeah, 2B. And then 2B. Through a Fatso, and then through a Chandler EQ, the really big one, the TG EQ. So
nice, man. That's fun to have all that stuff.
Yeah. So to like the point that we're trying to make here, it kind of like makes things sound more finished. So like the regular drums, are going through some analog, compression and EQ, and it sounds cool, and saturation with the Fatso, and so they sound a little bit more like a record. And then for just a little bit of extra excitement or whatever, you can beat the snot out of the drum smash. I mean, like, all right, the germanium compressor alone is pretty filthy, but if that's not filthy enough, and then you turn on the Culture Vulture, I mean, it's just haywire then, It's so haywire, in fact, that I follow it. Here's where I put the gate. I like just a noise gate. Just the noise floor is there enough that I have a gate after the Culture Vulture that just keeps the hiss out. Like it's dialed in really low, so that just keeps the hiss out. So you can come in, you could probably get tracking within like, I don't know, a half hour, 40 minutes or something. And then when you come in here, I can actually have, a drum setup that's got parallel compression. It's got its regular drum bus, processes, and I get some reverb on the vocals and get some room. Like it just sounds good right away, and it's fun and inspiring, and it's a great. I was gonna say it's a great way to kick off a session. People love it.
If you hear me cut in, you can finish your sentence and I'll jump in. Sorry, I'm trying to cut you off in your tracks. You're so responsive, man. You're so quick. If I go eat, you're just like you stop on a dime, dude. You'd make a hell of a race car.
Oh yeah, I know. It's a problem in real life. I have a bad habit. I talk over people. I apologize, but
no, you're good, man. You're good. No, shoot. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. So when you discovered that you got these cool sounds on the console, though, does that board also give you the ability to then just print them back into the Pro Tools session and commit them? You're like, those sounded great. Just lay them back in.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So check this out. Everything on the board, from the get-go, I'm going through the board. I'm going through the board like I am mixing. So that means that everything is going through, whether it's going through an aux or not. I mean, when I first open up a session, it's not going through an aux. So the drums are a good example because there are like a lot of microphones there. The drums will just all be assigned to my drum fader, and the act of doing that makes them go through the drum smash also. So being that that's the case and all the faders are kept at 0, it all reflects a mix. And I have a print track, and there's always a print track sitting there ready to record. So like anytime we need a rough or whatever, I just arm it for record and hit record. So that drum smash, it just is available in the mix from the start of the session. So it's always in the mix. That particular fader doesn't live at 0 because it's a drum smash. All the other faders do. But that one lives at -20, and that's usually just my starting point or whatever. So I guess the direct answer is I don't really need to print that one back in to save it forever because I don't really change the drum smash. And I don't really change the volume I can change the volume in the mix, but like, honestly, it's always there. So like in the final mix, by the time we're to that, maybe I find that it needs to be off. Maybe I find that it needs to be louder than -20, whatever. I just do it that way. So no, yeah. I don't print it and put it back in. I actually worry that might be out of phase because that was one of the things we were talking about in the beginning. And I wanted to talk about parallel compression and distortion in the box a little bit because there are some workarounds that I have found. And this I will not accidentally get off track because I've done it so many times. It's a way that I work. Check this out. Part of the reason why you can't really do those drum smash, like you can't have a drum bus on an aux and then use a send to another aux that has all of your distortion and your heavy compression. You can't do that. They will be out of sync. They'll phase. All right, so that doesn't work. We agree that doesn't work. You know what does work is if you took that drum bus and you duplicated it. Now you have 2 of them with the same inputs and outputs. There's nothing different. But on the second one, you put something really heavy duty. Well, actually, it also depends what you pick. So I'll pick one that I know works. The purple 1176 that comes with Pro Tools. Do you know that one? It's
right.
Like really old.
Yeah.
That distorts and blows up really nicely. So if you threw that on that second duplicated drum aux, smashed the crap out of it, it won't phase with the original ones. It won't. And the reason why it won't is because it's not sending from one to the other. It's just getting the same input at the top. Now, is that true of everything? No, because some plugins change the phase. So like, I'll tell you one that doesn't work very well that way. The Sans Amp one, it's more like a distortion pedal. That gets phasey. And I think the reason why that gets phasey is maybe it's designed a little bit more like a distortion pedal. Like for instance, like part of how you get a big muff to sound like it does with its like sort of mellowness is there's something in there that reverses the phase of the mid-range. And so it actually brings the mid-range down quite a bit. And then it distorts the crap out of it. And now you get sort of a full sounding distortion, but it is a big muff changes the phase. So I think that like, in this other example, the Sans Amp plugin, if you try to do that parallel, it actually changes the phase. You'll hear it. Decapitator does not change the phase. You could do that thing that I just talked about with Decapitator. There are a whole bunch that work and a whole bunch that don't work. You'd have to just try it. You hear it really.
So let me comment on SansAmp, because that, of course, Chad Blake, we got to give him the shout out again. He sort of introduced me to the SansAmp.
Yeah.
By introducing the studio I was at to the SansAmp. And so now I have one in the rack, and I've got the guitar pedal and all that kind of stuff, and the plugins. But Chad talked about this years ago. One of the plugins that came out that he said allowed you to get more phase cohesion is the Nembrini SansAmp. I think it was the PS1000 or something like that.
Okay.
Plugin. But I think it only does that because it has a blend knob built into the plugin.
That's great.
So when you put it on the track, you can blend in some SansAmp into your sound and get it to dial in a SansAmp sound, but get it to be more in phase. But again, that's a reason why I like having the rack unit, or to have a console. Again, there's all these reasons that we don't always talk about for having a console. It's not just, thank God we don't have to talk about, like, does it sound better mixing in Pro Tools or mixing through,
I know, right?
Summing it through a board anymore. It's like, you're missing the fucking point,
Yeah.
A console is about having a Swiss Army knife that lets you do all these, to be Inspector Gadget with all the arms in the control room and do a bunch of stuff at once.
Yeah.
But phase is one of those, one of those immediate, like, phase coherence. And even in analog world, you get phase problems that you have to be aware of.
Oh yeah.
Some pieces of gear do delay things slightly, and you got to listen for it. But at least in that moment, you're like, do I like it? Do I not like it? Cool. We're done thinking about it.
Yeah, the routing is really powerful in the analog world, and it's necessary if you want to be creative. It's great. Our patch bay also is a pretty powerful way to move signals around. It has a million ways to split and move things around, and I use them all the time. Actually, I've got a little bit more to say about this parallel drum compression in the box, because
do it.
This other way of working, I figured this out a long time ago, and I have barely ever heard anybody mention doing this, although I have heard one person mention doing this. So it's out there a little bit. Check this out. So these days, we put saturation and distortion, especially in the indie rock world, on like everything, like literally everything. And the way that it really does sound best is probably to do what we've been talking about, parallel, right? Maybe you beat up the main one a little bit, but then you have something really beat up that you blend in a little bit underneath. So you'll do this on kicks, you'll do this on snares, you'll do this on the whole drum kit, not really on toms. And room mics, I'll just usually distort and compress as they are. But I've come up with this sort of matrix of auxes that works in phase to be able to do this. So hopefully I describe it really cleanly. So let's say you've got 2 kick drum mics and 2 snare drum mics and 2 tom mics and overheads and rooms, and then a drum bus. What you can do to parallel compress or distort the kick and the snare is you can put them through their own buses. Everything has to go through its own bus, even things you're not doing this to. So the kick would go through aux kick, but also aux kick distortion. The snare would go through aux snare, but also aux snare distortion. The toms would go through aux tom. I won't make a tom distortion one. It doesn't matter. And then I would do another one. The overheads and rooms and hi-hat go through another aux that's for that stuff. And that also probably wouldn't have a parallel distortion. They all, they have the same outputs, and all of the outputs of all of those auxes feed the final drum bus. Since they all enter at the same spot, and none of them are being sent sort of, let's say, sideways, if you're doing a send and return kind of a thing, they stay in phase. I've checked this with, like, the reversing the phase on like an oscillator. It turns into silence. It's phase accurate. So I'll do that as a matter of course, even though I have this drum smash. Listen, I still might use this drum smash, but the truth of the matter is, usually what I'm doing is I'll have my kick drum going through a clean aux and a dirty, the snare going through a clean and a dirty, then those things feeding the drum bus. I'll probably duplicate that drum bus. Maybe there's a special section that's getting flanger on it or whatever. The second drum bus opens up with the flanger on it. Maybe there's another drum bus that adds distortion that opens up in the last chorus. Maybe the whole time all of that stuff is still going through my regular drum bus here on the console and the drum smash. And it all works in phase. But there are some caveats, which is to say, if you choose the wrong plugin to distort or compress, it can throw the phase off just because that's the way that plugin is. And if you do any of the things that I just said kind of incorrectly, that'll start to fall apart. But I promise you, this works. I do it on nearly every mix, and it's very powerful because from section to section, you can have your drums cleaner or dirtier, and that's the fun. Like that's sort of like we were talking about, like, you know, imparting your taste to make the ride a lot of fun. You know.
Can I ask you a question about that tracking versus mixing? When you think about that kind of drum mixing setup for yourself, do you think, okay, I'm going to just track with basic tracks in Pro Tools that all go to 1 and 2 until it's time to mix, and then I bring it over into this new mixing template? Or do you find that you've figured out a way to record right into that version of the routing while you're recording the drums where there's no latency issues, and then you sort of flip a switch and go into mix mode, and now you've got the extra stuff?
Yeah, I would say the cleanest answer to that question is that I do not have those auxes going when I start. Yeah, I would say I definitely don't. There is a switch at some point where I go, okay, let's finalize the way these drums sound a little bit. And that's why I do have the drum smash, so that we can have a little bit of that flavor while we're recording. That said, I generally have specialty mics out on the drum kit that are helping with this. We've got, some very big JBL speakers, just the speaker drivers, which will throw through a bunch of distortion and compression. And those come up sounding like gorillas or something. Like they are already kind of splatty and distorted. And so you'll get a little bit of that. I'll have a front of kit microphone that just has the shit kicked out of it. I'll have, there's a snare top microphone, snare bottom microphone, but there's often a snare side microphone that'll have the crap kicked out of it. There might be, have you ever seen those Coke bottle microphones? It's like this brass looking thing from
the
like the
Altec,
30s.
the Altec 150?
Yes. So I'll have one of those sort of in the heart of the drum kit, kind of like, if you got the snare here and the kick drum there, sort of in that spot between the pedal, and then that will have the crap kicked out of it.
Nice.
Room mics. The room mics, our room isn't splashy. If it needs to sound big, I'll put the Bricasti right on it. So like, yeah, I want the artist to hear that vibe and be psyched about that vibe when we start. It's not all the things I told you about with those auxes with the parallel compression, parallel distortion on it and stuff. But there's some of that flavor in there from the get-go. I kind of feel like it has to be that way. And that's what they get for going to a real studio. I can't have them coming into the studio and having it feel like they're at home. Everything just comes up dry and like there's no creativity here. Like, why would you do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, and especially for the styles of music you're working on, because some bands, it's hard, it's always a funny balancing act, because I think every band wants to sound special when they come out of the speakers, but one band's version of what's appropriately special could be totally different from another's. And so it's good that you've got that flexibility to, it's like you turn around and look at their haircut and you hit a different switch on the console and it's like a whole different mix comes out.
It's very funny. Very, very funny. Yeah, I mean, there is sort of like this is, I guess, a tangent, but certainly I'm trying to use all the tools at my disposal to get to the vibe that I think will be appropriate. And the cool thing is, or not the cool thing, the fortunate thing is I've listened to a lot of different kinds of music in my life. Some things are very clean and sterile, and some things are really haywire, blown out. And I like all the different versions of them. So I try to key in, as we're listening to the band playing the song the first time or whatever, I'm trying to key into like, all right, where does this really fit? We were talking about Kids That Fly, and they've got like a dirtier, more indie rock sound on those songs that I've done. But one of the other things that I'm excited about was Eric Holgis. I did his solo album. That's more like theater music. It's clean,
It's very clean pop, and he's got a great singing voice. But so there's a song in the playlist called Too Late.
Yeah.
A great pop song. And what really struck me too, because I've been thinking about songwriting a lot lately, a thing that I noticed right away, and of course the lyrics and the voice are forefront, so that's going to be a thing that connects with you when you listen. But they, you know, it's written in a really great pop song lyrical composition where as a songwriter, you know, if he's the writer of that particular song,
Yes.
it really gets to the essence of the message of what is this song about, you know, which is a lot harder to do than we realize until you jump into songwriting. You know, it's like, it's hard to write a song that just says what it's trying to say and does it well and clearly and is still interesting and everything like that. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, that may be partly what you noticed when you switched from your home studio to working with a lot more professional level, team where you've got artists that are serious about their career. You've got a songwriter who's serious about the songwriting. You got a producer who's serious about making sure that all the right things hit home.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, if you're working with better songwriters who have better producers.
What were the bigger challenges? Was like treating the vocal just right? Was that the biggest one?
Yeah, from song to song. I mean, just trying to make it connect emotionally. You know, when the way the songs are now, so they're generally very emotional songs. A lot of times they're pretty dynamic. There's usually a big payoff, at least somewhere in the songs. And when I got the rough mixes, I'm going to say they were a little bit more like board mixes. So like they didn't have that automation. They had cool sounds. Absolutely. They would have recorded cool sounds. Sometimes I put cool effects. There are things that I kept. Absolutely. But what they didn't have in there were things that really controlled the arc. I mean, where the song is supposed to really blow up, the fader automations and things weren't there to make that lift. The vocal throws or the sort of interesting things that would make it sort of move you from one section of the song to the other, while also sounding quite a bit bigger than that working mix. So it was the challenge because I'm listening to it being like, hey, this is really compelling as it is. Now it's my job to make it like really good. So what do I do? And it was a little intimidating getting into it for the first sort of mix. I was just like, this is really good music. By the way, I love that album. So like it was sort of intimidating to me to work on something I love so much. But I just started chipping away and starting to feel like, okay, this is sort of the way these songs will go. This is going to be a fader riding kind of a thing, isn't it? All right. Anytime you think you're going for dramatic, no, go for melodramatic. Like there's nothing.
Melodramatic.
Yeah, there's nothing. Not even in a bad way. Not in a derogatory sense. Like there's a certain amount of a little too much that we went for on the album.
Yeah.
Where it calls for it.
Just rock stars. Just a reminder: melodramatic does not mean mellow.
No, the opposite.
It means more dramatic.
More dramatic, right?
Such a good term. Such a good word too.
Of course. Oh man.
Well, groovy, man. Well, we're basically coming to the closing of the show, but I wanted to ask you, if you had anything else you wanted to give a shout out about just your own sort of streamlining of the recording process there at 9 Points, stuff that what message do you want to send out to bands that might be listening to this that are thinking about what it would be like to come record there? You've already shared a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh, geez. What would I say in closing? Well, first of all, I'd say, hey, stop by anytime you're in New York City or in Greenwich. We're really close. We'd be happy to say hi. And as far as streamlining, we've set this studio up to kind of take the engineering out of it. I mean, there's a lot of engineering, but you won't see any of it. This space is about being creative and talking about, melodies and rhythms and the arc of the song. You're not going to hear me talking about this is used on a Beatles album. I don't care. And I don't think that you guys care. I mean, I do care. The nerdy side of myself cares, but that's not really part of making a record here. I'm not going to run down all the things I'm doing. I trust that you worked on this material and it's really great, and I don't need to hear the backstory of that. I just need to react to it, and we work as a team to make that the best thing. This gear, this is all elaborate and it's over the top and all of that, but like, it doesn't play into it as much as just the creative environment, the creative conversation. So I would say that's the takeaway. Don't think of this as a pile of gear. It's not. It's creative space.
It's a hell of a pile, if it's a pile of gear. But the the website, for example, you've got images of just a group of people working together in the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things I appreciated. That was sort of a little bit of a takeaway for me in reading about what you were doing, was just this idea of having the attitude that says, like, we'll have a team working with you, if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
There can be somebody who's off to the side editing the loops and getting all that stuff sorted out. You can, have somebody who's working with you as the vocalist, as the producer. We've got the ability to patch things in. Do you want to talk also about just the rooms and the spaces that you've got there? I mean, we see the control room, which looks gorgeous, but I'm guessing you've got tracking, ISO, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we do a lot with a small footprint. This is the basement of a rather large house, but it is the basement of a house. The live room, I would say, is probably, well, I guess it's probably about the same square footage as what you see here. I mean, like, it is it's tight but well put together. If you need big boomy sounds, we can make it happen, even if it doesn't look like it can. It can happen. But so anyway, live room that we can kind of make just about anything happen. There are tons of amps in there. Everything is always mic'd up and ready to go. There is an ISO booth. It's totally isolated from everything else. The bathroom is wired up too. If you wanted to use like a secondary isolation room, or if you wanted to get some reverb from it, you can do that too. The garage is wired up. There's a green room.
Do those mics go off when we're using the bathroom?
I know, that's always the joke, right? No, they're not plugged in. There are no microphones in there. But if we ever want to play a dirty joke on someone, I guess we could do that.
I've put a mic in the bathroom on a session before.
Yeah,
and it's really hilarious when somebody goes in to use it in the middle of the
flushing.
Or even if I just have like the vocal, booth right next to the bathroom and the door's open and the vocal mic is compressed like crazy or whatever. It's like, the speaker's down for a moment.
A lot of gain happening there. You get to hear some stuff. Actually, so we don't do it here, but speaking of the bathroom, maybe this is what you were doing. Drum room mic in the bathroom adjacent to the live room, with the door open a crack. Oh, that can actually be the best room mic that you can have, because it gets the cymbal bleed out. It's just reverb, That used to be my go-to. When I had my warehouse studio, I'd put a microphone outside the door of the studio. It works. It's a pretty cool lo-fi way to get like big sounds.
Well, especially for recording in a house. We're still in a home studio setup too. It's just a great reminder to experiment with that stuff.
Yeah.
Try mics in other rooms, crank them up, compress the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe don't route them to the speakers so you don't accidentally like turn your speakers up and blow your speaker cones out, which I've done before with my old NS10s. But to your point, capture those extreme treatments, because you might not know that it's working until you go out of record mode, turn your speakers up and start working them into the mix, and then you discover, oh shit, that makes a great room mic right there.
Sure.
Cool, man. Well, hey, dude, a couple of quick closing questions. When you started out in recording, what do you think was holding you back? I mean, you've been doing this for a while, but when you were in those early stages, what was really like holding you back from doing what you needed to do?
Was holding me back from what I needed to do at the time.
Maybe it was thinking you had to play by the rules while your drummer like exploded the 4-track and said, "Hey, why does this sound better?"
You know what? That's a great thing to bring up. Finding a center point, right? Because like I oscillated between the two. Early on, I was blowing things up. I go, "That's not right," and then later on, I wasn't blowing anything up at all, and that wasn't right either. Finding the center point, that was huge. And a thing that throw in there also, like, honestly, this improved my recording game so much. When I went from being somebody who did not know how to tune drums to being somebody who did know how to tune drums, that made a much bigger difference than any other piece of gear I ever got. And I, to this day, kind of believe that that really helped me get the job at Tarquin Studios, because I walked in and I knew how to tune the drums, and Peter loved getting big, great drum sounds. Not going to say he didn't know how to do it, but like, I put in some real time to learning how to do it, because I didn't even have any gear. The only thing that I had was the ability to manipulate stuff like that. And I became the drum tuning guy over at Tarquin Studios, and I think he really liked that, and he didn't have to worry about it, and he could do his thing, which was quite a bit of production work, interfacing with the band, all that stuff. And he'd just be like, set up those drums, get them tuned up, and we'll see how they sound, kind of a thing.
That
Tuning
sounds
drums.
awesome, dude. Can you give us a take-home tip for tuning drums? Like, I don't know, pick one of them and say, try this.
I got to say, read the drum tuning Bible, go and tune every drum in your studio 4 or 5 times. Keep reading it. Here's what I did. I read the drum tuning Bible. This is a thing you can find online. There are a few different versions of it. I read it. Then I went out into the live room and I tuned every drum I had, which was like a couple of kits worth, because we had a couple of bands in there. And then I went back and I read it again. And then I went and detuned all the drums, like heads off, and then redid it. Honestly, after doing that loop, doing the loop twice kind of got me pretty good, and then just working on it afterwards. But yeah,
it's a great tip, man.
Yeah, just get into it, and like get into, I would say, like, putting things on the heads, hanging things off the bottom. Like, listen to the amount of sustain that comes off of them. Listen to what they naturally want to sound like. If it naturally wants to be a little lower and you want a higher sound, get a different drum. Like, so I don't know. I would say if I wanted to help anybody to like start getting great sounding recordings, learn how to tune those drums. It'll help everything.
That's great, man. I love that. All right. Then next question. This one is fun. I love to ask this of all the guests. You've heard it probably listening to the show, but we get to take the Wayback Studio machine. You go back in time and you find young Greg and you say, listen, Greg, it's me. I'm older you.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, good news is you're still going to have the hair, dude. Nicely done. I think I said that to the last guest too, but you guys have fabulous hair.
Oh, well, thank you.
And then, and you say, but here's the single most important thing you do need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice would you go back and give yourself if you could?
Keep showing up. You got to keep showing up. You got to get in the 10,000 hours. And when I say showing up, I don't mean just getting in the room. I mean applying yourself, keeping learning, keep a good attitude. There are going to be ups and downs. Some of the downs in this industry are pretty awful. Sometimes you'll think that you've got a good thing going on. They'll pull the rug right out from under you. Sometimes you will run out of money. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes you run out of money. It's like flying a plane that's always running out of fuel. It's like, oh no, it's going down. No, we didn't hit the mountain. We're all right.
Yeah.
Ride the wave, man. So I would say just be ready for a long, exciting ride like that. Keep showing up. That's it. And you be obsessed. I think you have to be obsessed. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. If you're listening to this show and you're already here with us, good news is you're obsessed, rock stars. So well done. That's why we do this. I mean, to your point, I've had those times, numerous times, where I was just like, I think that might be it. Am I in, should I switch careers?
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking that along the way, and I'm always so glad that I didn't. I just said like, nah, I don't know what else to do. So I'll just keep doing this because I think I know this the best. And then you just see it through. You ride that wave.
Other jobs are terrible. Totally worth it. Honestly, totally worth it. That's
a great takeaway. By the way, rock stars, remember this one thing. Other jobs are terrible.
That's my quote. I got to get that on a shirt, I think. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't regret it. And I haven't really totally crashed yet. The plane has nearly crashed a couple of times, and I've always pulled it out so far,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've dropped a wing or like, a a fin off the back or a propeller, but
Yeah.
still flying. Well, dude, it's been totally awesome to hang with you. So great to meet you. Let the Rockstars know, how can they find you? If you want them to follow you, go check out the studio or connect with you online. What if they're ready to come make a killer record and they just want to walk in, have you pull up those SSL faders and go, shit, man, that sounds like a record?
Yeah, we've got a pretty elaborate website at www.ninepointstudios.com.
And it's
you can
a
also,
number 9, not NINE, right?
That's right, number 9pointstudios.com. There's an Instagram off there. We keep that updated. That's kind of like our signs of life in the Instagram. Not much of a big Facebook presence. There are a couple of videos on YouTube. I'd go to the website. That can't lecture. And there's a tour video in there. There's some neat stuff. So
very cool, man. Well, thank you for hanging with us, Rockstars. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Recording Studio Rockstars. If you're listening to this right now and you're not watching, feel free to come on over and check it out. The full video on YouTube, where you can actually see the control room back there, and you can see the cool things that Greg did. Like, I forgot what you were talking about, but at one point you did this, like, you were explaining something and you did like a Lotus. It was like the Lotus patch bay in the studio or something.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. I think I was doing the cue. I think I was doing the cue on
it was the cue.
It
was the cue. Somehow that's a cue mix, but I love it. See, Rockstars, now you got to come over to video, because you can be like, what the hell are they talking about?
Right.
Awesome, dude. And then Rockstars, if you enjoyed this, please hit that like button, because it really helps elevate the video so that other folks like yourself can discover it and enjoy the ride of talking about studio stuff. And then subscribe so that you get more of the videos from us. And leave a comment below and let us know if you enjoyed it, or tell us what you think your version of the best headphone mix is. That's what I want to know. Would you agree?
Like
Anything else you want?
Yeah, actually, if you know how to do that, let me know, because apparently I'm not exactly sure.
I love it.
I do it in Pro Tools anyway.
That's perfect. No, this is what we're here for. It's a community effort, man. We're all just trying to invent the best records we can. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, great to meet you, man. I'll see you around the studio.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our fantastic sponsors who make this episode possible. Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, Grace Design. Check out the Spectra 1964 website for factory direct budget-saving prices on the STX 600, 100, 100D, and BBDI DirectBox. And remember to take advantage of our special coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase at nativeinstruments.com. And don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in the show notes below. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because it's a great way to help support this show. And I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko and Daria Tupesis. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.